I was standing in the middle of a grand ballroom when my whole world froze. Soft music played in the background. Crystal lights shimmered above me. People laughed, talked, and clinked glasses like nothing was wrong. But my hands were shaking so badly, I had to hold my drink with both hands. Then I heard a woman's voice behind me, not loud, not rushed, clear and calm. "Excuse me? Are you Sophie?" My heart stopped. I turned slowly. A well-dressed woman stood there, her eyes fixed on my face like she was looking at a ghost. In that second, I knew something terrible and something powerful had just happened. Because my brother had spent years making sure no one in this room ever knew I existed. I forced a small smile. "Yes," I said. "I'm Sophie." Her eyes widened. "I knew it," she whispered. "You look just like him." Before I could ask who she meant, I saw my brother across the room, Daniel. He was standing near the bar, laughing with people in expensive suits. When his eyes met mine, his smile disappeared. His face turned pale like all the blood had drained from it. He knew his secret was about to fall apart. That was the moment everything changed. My name is Sophie. I am 28 years old, and the man who tried to erase me from his life was the same. Brother who once promised he would always protect me. Daniel is 5 years older than me. When we were younger, he was my hero. After our parents died, he became my whole world. I trusted him more than anyone. I believed every word he said, especially when he promised that no matter what happened, we would always be family. But somewhere along the way, that promise became inconvenient. Daniel married into money. Real money. His wife Claire came from a rich and powerful family. Big house. Fancy events. Important friends. Everything we never had growing up, and slowly. I stopped being invited at first. I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe Daniel was busy. Maybe his new life was stressful. But deep down, I felt it. I was being pushed out, hidden, like a shameful reminder of a past he wanted to forget. The truth hurt more than I expected. Not because I needed his money or his lifestyle, but because I needed my brother. That night at the party, as I stood there surrounded by strangers who knew his name but not mine, I realized something painful. Daniel didn't just forget me, he chose to hide me, and as the woman in front of me waited for my answer, I understood that this lie, his perfect, carefully built lie, was finally coming to an end. Before Daniel became someone else. He was just my brother. When I think about our childhood, I don't remember luxury or comfort. I remember silence after our parents died. I remember empty chairs at the dinner table. I remember Daniel standing in the kitchen late at night, counting coins with tired eyes, trying to figure out how we would survive another week. I was 17 when everything fell apart. Daniel was 22. He should have been thinking about his future, his dreams. Instead, he became my shield. He worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. He skipped meals so I could eat. He told me stories at night so I wouldn't cry. Back then, Daniel used to say, "Sophie, one day we'll laugh about all this." I believed him. For years, it was just us against the world. We didn't have much, but we had each other. And that felt like enough. But people change when the world finally opens its doors to them. Daniel met Claire at a business event. She was beautiful, confident, polished, the kind of woman who belonged in rooms with chandeliers and quiet power. She came from a family that owned buildings, companies, influence. Her parents, Richard and Evelyn Hawthorne, were well known in their circles. At first, I was happy for Daniel. Truly, he finally had the life he always dreamed of. But after the wedding, something shifted. The calls became shorter. The visits stopped. The warmth in his voice faded. When I asked him if I could meet Claire's parents, he hesitated. Not for seconds, but for too long. "They're very traditional," he said. "They wouldn't understand our past. The word stayed with me, like something dirty, something embarrassing. I laughed it off at first. I told myself I was being sensitive. But deep down, I felt it clearly. Daniel was afraid of how I would look standing next to him. One evening, I visited his new house. Everything was white, clean, perfect. Claire smiled politely, but there was distance in her eyes, like I didn't quite belong there. During dinner, Claire mentioned her parents were hosting a big charity event. I looked at Daniel and asked, should I come? He didn't even look at me when he said, it's probably not a good idea. My chest tightened. Why? He sighed like I was a problem he didn't want to deal with. Sophie, it's complicated. You wouldn't be comfortable there. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him if he was ashamed of me. But I did instead. I swallowed my pain and nodded. That night I cried alone in my small apartment. Not because I wanted his world, but because I felt like I no longer belonged in his. Weeks later, an invitation arrived in the mail. My name was written clearly on the envelope. Sophie, no last name, mistake. No accident. A formal party, hosted by the Hawthorne family. When I called Daniel, his voice cracked. Did you get an invitation? He asked. Yes, I replied softly. There was silence on the line, and in that silence, I understood something that broke my heart even more than his words ever could. Daniel wasn't just hiding me from his rich in-laws, he was hiding me from the man he had become. After that phone call, I sat on my bed for a long time, staring at the invitation in my hands. The paper was thick and smooth. My name looked strange, printed in elegant letters, like it belonged to someone else. Someone richer. Someone more acceptable. I kept hearing Daniel's voice in my head. You wouldn't be comfortable there. What he really meant was, they wouldn't be comfortable with you. That night. I barely slept. My mind kept going back and forth. Part of me wanted to tear the invitation apart and forget about it. I told myself I didn't need their world. I had my own life, my own struggles, my own pride. But another part of me felt tired of hiding. I was tired of shrinking, tired of pretending I didn't care, tired of being the secret everyone agreed not to mention. I thought about everything I had survived, losing my parents, growing up too fast, watching my brother slowly walk away from me. If I could survive all of that, I could survive one party. So I made a decision. I would go not to embarrass Daniel, not to beg for acceptance, but to stand in the truth of who I was. The day of the party, my hands shook as I got ready. I didn't have a designer dress or expensive jewelry. I wore a simple black dress I had saved up for months to buy. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine. As I looked at myself in the mirror, I whispered, "You belong wherever you stand." The drive to the venue felt unreal. The building was huge, glowing with lights, surrounded by expensive cars. For a moment, I sat in my seat and considered turning around. Then I remembered Daniel counting coins at the kitchen table years ago, the brother who promised to never leave me behind. I stepped out of the car. Inside, everything felt too perfect. People spoke softly, laughed politely, and looked at each other like they were always measuring worth. I felt eyes on me, curious, judging, wondering where I fit. I stayed near the wall, holding a glass I didn't drink from. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure others could hear it. Then I saw Daniel. He was smiling, confident, dressed in a suit that fit him like he had always belonged in it. For a second, I felt proud, and then invisible. He saw me. His smile disappeared instantly. He walked toward me fast, his face tight with panic. "What are you doing here?" He whispered sharply. "I was invited," I replied, holding up the envelope. "This isn't the time," he said. "You should leave." Those words cut deep. I looked at him and asked quietly, "Why are you so afraid of me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he turned away. That was when I understood something important. Daniel wasn't protecting me from their world. He was protecting his image from my existence, and standing there, alone in a room full of wealth and power, I made another decision. I would not run. If this was the moment his lie ended, then I would let it end with me standing tall. I stayed even after Daniel walked away. Even after my chest felt tight and my hands wouldn't stop shaking, I stayed. I stood there, surrounded by strangers who didn't know my story, trying to breathe like I belonged. Every instinct in me told me to leave. To disappear quietly the way Daniel wanted. But something deeper, something older, kept my feet planted to the floor. I had spent too many years being invisible. I couldn't do it anymore. I moved slowly through the room, pretending to admire the paintings on the walls. My heart jumped every time someone looked at me for more than a second. I felt like I was standing under a spotlight, even though no one was paying real attention. Then I heard her voice again. Sophie. I turned and saw the same woman from earlier, standing closer now. She was elegant, calm, and observant. There was kindness in her eyes, but also sharp intelligence. I'm Evelyn Hawthorne. She said gently. My stomach dropped. She was Claire's mother. Daniel's powerful mother-in-law. The woman he was so desperate to impress? Yes, I replied softly. I'm Sophie. She studied my face again, longer this time. I knew it, she said. Those eyes? You have Daniel's eyes. I swallowed hard. He's my brother. Her expression changed not to anger, not to shock, but to surprise mixed with curiosity. He never mentioned a sister, she said slowly. I didn't know what to say. My mouth opened, then closed. For a second, I considered lying, protecting Daniel the way I always had. But I was tired, I think. That was his choice, I said. Evelyn didn't respond right away. She gestured toward a quieter corner of the room. Come sit with me, she said. I hesitated. Every warning bell in my head was screaming. But I followed her. We sat on a small couch away from the noise. She folded her hands in her lap and looked straight at me. Tell me about yourself, she said. No judgment, no accusation, just curiosity, so I told her. Slowly at first. Then, honestly, I told her about our parents. About losing them too young. About Daniel raising me. About the years we struggled and survived together. I didn't speak badly about him. I didn't need to. The truth was heavy enough on its own. As I spoke, I noticed Daniel across the room. He kept glancing at us, his face tense, his body stiff. He looked like a man waiting for a storm he couldn't stop. When I finished, Evelyn let out a quiet breath. You should be proud, she said. Both of you. Proud? That word hit me harder than anything else that night. I didn't come here to cause problems, I said quickly. I just didn't want to be hidden anymore. Evelyn nodded slowly. No one should be hidden, she replied. Just then, Richard Hawthorne joined us. Daniel followed behind him, his steps slow, his face tight with fear. What's going on? Richard asked. Evelyn looked at Daniel calmly and said, Your sister is remarkable. Daniel's eyes met mine. And for the first time that night, he looked ashamed, not because of me, but because the truth had found its voice, and it was stronger than his silence. The air around us felt heavy, like the room itself was holding its breath. Richard Hawthorne looked from Evelyn to Daniel, then to me. His expression wasn't angry. It was thoughtful. That somehow made it worse. Sister? Richard asked Daniel quietly. Daniel swallowed. Yes, he said. My younger sister. There was no confidence in his voice. No pride, just defeat. Richard turned to me. Why haven't we met you before, Sophie? The question was calm, but it cut deep. I felt everyone's eyes on me, even though the rest of the room continued laughing and drinking like nothing important was happening. I could have lied. I could have protected Daniel again, but I had done that my whole life. I wasn't invited. I said softly. Daniel flinched. I explained everything carefully, honestly, without anger. I spoke about our childhood, about how Daniel once gave up his dreams to raise me. I spoke about how proud I had been when he finally succeeded. And I spoke about how, somewhere along the way, I stopped being part of his story. I think Daniel was afraid, I said, my voice shaking, that where we came from would make him look small. Silence followed. Then Richard spoke. Where you come from doesn't make you small. Pretending it never existed does. Daniel's shoulders dropped. Evelyn reached out and took my hand. Her grip was warm, steady. You are not an embarrassment, she said firmly. You are family. That was the moment I realized the truth. The revenge wasn't planned. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was simply being honest in a room built on image. Daniel tried to speak. I just wanted things to be easy, he said. For who? I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Claire stood nearby, silent. There was disappointment in her eyes, not at me, but at the man she had married. She finally said, "You should have told them. You should have told me." Daniel nodded, his eyes down. The Hawthorns didn't yell. They didn't shame him publicly. But something shifted. The respect Daniel had worked so hard to build cracked not because of his past, but because of his fear. Later that night, people approached me. They asked about my work, my life, my dreams. They listened. They treated me like I belonged. Daniel watched from a distance. For the first time, he had no control over the narrative. When the party ended, he came to me. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't realize how much I was hurting you." I looked at him, the brother I loved, the man who lost himself trying to impress the wrong people. "I just wanted to be acknowledged," I replied. He nodded. "I know." That night, I didn't walk away feeling victorious. I walked away feeling free, because the truth didn't just expose him. It released me. The days after the party were quiet. To quiet, no dramatic phone calls. No angry messages. No sudden apologies wrapped in excuses. Just silence. For the first time in my life, I didn't rush to fill it. I spent a lot of time alone replaying that night in my mind. The lights. The voices. Daniel's face when the truth finally stood between us. I realized something uncomfortable. I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired. Tired of carrying pain that wasn't mine to hold. A week later, Daniel called. "Can we talk?" He asked. We met at a small cafe we used to visit years ago, back when money was tight and dreams were simple. He looked different. Not weaker, just stripped of his armor. "I built my life around proving I belonged," he said. "And somewhere in that process, I decided you didn't fit the picture." Hearing that hurt, but it also confirmed what I already knew. "I didn't need to fit your picture," I replied. "I needed you to stand beside me." He nodded slowly. "I know. And I'm sorry. Wasn't a perfect apology. It didn't erase the years of distance. But it was real. I forgave him not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. That night taught me something powerful. I learned that people don't hide others because they're weak. They hide them because they're afraid of judgment, afraid of truth, afraid of remembering who they really are. Daniel wasn't ashamed of me. He was ashamed of the part of himself that struggled, failed, survived, and when I stopped letting his fear define me, I finally felt whole. The Hawthorns stayed in touch. Not because of pity, but because of respect. They saw my past not as a flaw, but as proof of strength. That surprised me. It shouldn't have. Your story doesn't make you small. It makes you real. If you're listening to this and you've ever been hidden, dismissed, or made to feel like you don't belong, remember this. You don't need permission to exist loudly. You don't need approval to be worthy. And you don't need revenge to reclaim your power. Sometimes, the most satisfying revenge is self-respect. Thank you for staying with my story until the end. If it touched you, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. And before you go, ask yourself this: who in your life might be hiding you, and why? Because once you see the truth, you never shrink again.